Welcome to another episode of the Caffeinated Librarians. I'm Simona.
I'm Amy.
And what are we talking about today, Amy?
We are talking about The Flash, which is on Netflix, which is where I found it. It's originally WB, correct?
Yeah, I
You're
think it is.
you're the metadata expert. That's so we have Simona, the metadata expert, and Lou, the general superhero consultant today.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like when I first started watching it, I was like, this looks like a WB show. It
Ugh,
has the WB aesthetic. It's
it
like
really does.
a runway model. Everyone is like their style is on point. I was right. It's a WB show.
Yeah,
Basically Riverdale
yeah.
with superheroes, right?
Exactly. Um, it's funny though, because I keep going back and forth on Barry Allen, who is the Flash. Like half the time, I'm like, his face is very pointy, and the other half of the time, I think he's adorable. So I just go back and forth from scene to scene.
I know what you're talking about. I had the same reaction because I don't think his face is very symmetrical. And I don't mean that in like
No.
I think his because when you look at it, I think that's sometimes what throws me off because I mean the actor is definitely, he's an attractive guy. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But when you see his face, I think that's probably what the issue is, where like moments I'm looking at him like, oh, he's cute. And then I look at him like it's kind of, I think it's because his face. I, I don't really think I think it's because maybe his face isn't terribly
I think you're
symmetrical,
right.
but
I do. I think that that's right because like I I had problems because like I'm gonna just keep it real here. A lot of the time, I am lying in bed watching TV without my glasses on. So, so I'll be watching and I'll be like squinting at him and thinking, did they change the character? Is he a different person? And then I just decided that it was always the same person, but his face would just be pointy sometimes. And I think you're right. I think it's just the camera direction and stuff.
yeah. And then another thing I was thinking of, like when he wears his costume, his face is basically obscured, and I used obscured with air quotes
Significant air quoting.
because it's basically like covering his eyes. I mean, and I guess he does have that cap that like covers his hair or whatever. But I'm like, is that really
No,
fooling anyone? It kind of reminds me of Sailor Moon when
it's
they
all the same. Yeah.
would transform, and everybody like, who is that girl? And I'm like, am I just not seeing something? Has something not been explained? I mean, other than an outfit change, he's not wearing a mask. How does no one know who she is? So like that always bugged me, and it was never explained how that worked. At least Tuxedo Mask, he had his eye mask, I guess. But hey, so like the whole Barry Allen thing, whenever he goes to see Iris, which annoyed me. I hated those
Oh,
moments
good.
where it's like, yeah, I already knew where that was going, but it bothered me where he would appear. And I kind of like how they explained his voice thing because I'm like, is he using a voice modifier? Like, I mean, I thought it was kind of cool.
Hmm.
Those moments where she's staring and like you can see already she's in love with this guy that she doesn't even know. Flash, because she knows Barry, but it's like, and I'm like, oh, give me a break.
I agree. I think with every superhero, you just have to assume that everybody is blind or dumb.
Okay.
Yeah, like
So,
Superman just takes off his glasses and nobody
right, and gets a
recognizes
Jerry
him.
curl, gets that little like swoop in the front with a little bang, and nobody knows who he is. Um, yeah, I loved the first season. I have to say, I watched extra seasons and was less of a fan. I do think that the first season was definitely enough to go on, and
Mhm.
then the second season we were kind of like, and then the third season we gave up because it just keeps tracking through the same content because he can travel back through time. So he just like, the first season is actually like the best because they stay in the present. And then like, you know, he's going back and changing things or trying to change things or not changing things and ruining things. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting and annoying. But this season, like the first season was great. I love Dr. Wells, and that was a bad thing. The whole first season was not good for me because it wasn't Dr. Wells. But the second season is worth it if you love Dr. Wells, just for having Dr. Wells as a good guy.
He appears like in flashbacks or
No. It's they opened a rift. They opened a rift in the they opened a rift in the final episode, and Dr. Wells could come from another Earth. So I mean,
always seems to work out that way, right?
it does. It's fantastic. Recurring characters, they always find their way back. So I did really like a lot of aspects. I do want to talk mostly, I think, more about the interpersonal relationships and the way the characters kind of interact more than the superhero aspect. But Lou, you were going to ask us some superhero questions, and I want that to happen.
Yes. So just a couple of really hard-hitting questions that I'm sure have crossed your minds as well as everyone else's minds. So first, since you guys watched The Flash, we'll start with who would win in a race, The Flash or Superman?
I think my guess is The Flash. And because I think in the canon of Superman, he only really goes back in time once to my recollection, although I never read the comic books.
Yeah, my only knowledge of Superman comes from the films that were made in the 70s. Like that's my knowledge of Superman. I don't know. I was gonna just go with Superman because Superman technically is an alien. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go with Superman because he's an alien. And yeah, I'm saying Superman.
Yeah. Do you have an opinion on this now? We need your opinion, superhero consultant.
I would have to also go with Superman.
Wow.
I know the Flash is pretty quick, but I mean it's literally Superman.
True.
All this stuff about even that dreadful Batman versus Superman movie. Like, would that even be a contest? He's
No.
Superman. It's kind of like how in Avengers, whenever like Thor seems to have a tough time, I'm like, this guy's a god.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I can definitely see that. I guess it's just that the Flash is like literally that's like one of his only tricks.
That's what he does, right?
Right. Like I can go back in time because I'm fast.
And I'm so curious if people who have like any kind of background in that branch of science, if they were watching this show and going, that would never happen. Because I'm just thinking back to shows that I watched and I was reading comments from people that were within that specific field, like whether it was like lawyers or doctors, and they were going like, this would never happen. That would be a lawsuit. It didn't happen. The doctor would never do this. It's always fun when you like within a field critiquing like a fictional universe like this would happen. Yeah, so I was just really curious how scientists were like, what if they were watching this or like, but yeah, like I never watched the Batman versus Superman because I'm not a big comic book or comic movie person to begin with. Like the one movie of Lewis that I actually enjoyed was Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's like my favorite.
Yeah, I watched both movies like twice, and I could watch them. Like I tried watching Black Panther. I couldn't do it. So I was like, so superhero movies are not my thing. But yeah, the whole Batman versus Superman, it was kind of like when they did Freddy versus Jason movie. And I'm just remembering this throwaway line of a character where she goes, "We can't go to sleep and we can't stay awake." I was like, oh my Lord, that's like a whole new low. But I was thinking, I mean, because I always was curious whether, and this is and just a quick aside, whether Jason was a human or supernatural. Because I was like saying, much sense to me, like how these things worked. And anyway, Freddy, I don't know. He just seems more awesome because once you get into his turf, he's able to manipulate his environment. Automatically win against Jason?
You see, these are questions I can't answer. I don't watch any of those things because I'm like easily terrified.
Yeah,
Like those things put me like screaming memes. It's just everything I hate is all jump scare. And
oh yeah,
and I can't stand jump scares. So yeah, I actually Animal Crossing, I play that way too much, and like I would just start running around other things and say to Dan, "Look, I'm the Flash," because it was like the only move. But I was thinking a lot about Joe, the foster dad, Iris's dad, and how like everybody was keeping secrets because of him. Like like Barry couldn't tell her he was the Flash. And then Iris had a secret. She was not telling him about Eddie. And there was just a whole lot of annoying secret keeping driven by him. And then not in this season, like you find out that her mom's not actually dead either. She was unfortunately an addict and left because she was, unhappy anyway. And then, I guess she felt like she was wrecking her family, so she left. But, that is a history of secret keeping. And, and every time, like, Iris is just like, I understand after a while. Like, at some point, I'd be like, well, this is kind of big.
Yeah, like the whole part where Barry first goes to her to like, I guess, threaten her, and I use air quotes again. It's like, I mean, considering the how serious it was that his identity is kept a secret, he didn't do much of a good job in convincing Iris. Like I was thinking, eventually you need to scare her. Just scare her to the point where she will never want to write about you again. Because if you're really concerned that this getting out will lead to, okay, if people know who I am, they'll find out who I care about, and that will put me in danger. It's almost like he was not truly invested in making sure that Iris understood, no, this is why you need to stop drawing attention to me. This is why. It's almost like he was like, oh, my crush is crushing on me. This is all.
Right.
And if he were a teenager, that would sort of be understandable, but he's a grown man. It's like, just tell her, this is why I need you to stop writing about me. And if you need to scare her to the point where she never wants to write about you again, scare her. Do something. That was annoying me. This constant back and forth, like, let me zip around and show you my speed. And I don't know. That bothered me because honestly, well, multiple points throughout the season, they're both put in danger to one extent or the other. And that still is not enough to sort of make him, I don't know, drive the point home to Iris, or even Iris. It's like, I understand she's an investigative journalist or, whatever. But it's like, at one point, do you stop putting yourself in danger, your father in danger, Eddie in danger, And even, I sort of hate going back to Eddie, and I know this wasn't meant to be taken seriously, but I kind of hated when she has that throwaway line where she says, "Oh, the Flash is one of the 3 guys I'm allowed to cheat on Eddie with," and she has like this big smile on her face. I'm like, that's not funny. Can you imagine if Eddie were to say, if the Flash were a woman, he'd go, "The women I'm allowed to cheat on Iris with." I don't think anyone amusing. And it isn't amusing. I mean, I understand it's a throwaway line, it's a joke, it's never mentioned again. But considering how the first time she physically meets the Flash, who's a dude in like a leotard with his like face partly obscured and it's like zipping around her, he has this threatening voice, and she's already like, like you thing, and like a violin playing, and I'm like, oh, come on, give me a break. It's like, what is it about this man? I understand he's helping people, but other than that, why is this insta love kind of deal? I think that's what bothered me too. And like, poor Eddie, I was like, oh, just leave her already. I was like, you can see she's not invested in you emotionally, or even she's there when you're in the same room together. Like, she's thinking about, like, I don't know. I'm curious where the Eddie storyline goes to, because when Dr. Wells was talking to him, I almost got the impression, it sort of reminded me of what's that guy's name in the Batman films where half his face is terribly scarred, the other half is normal?
Two-Face.
Yes. It reminded me of the film where the Joker, which that's actually an awesome film that I could probably watch a few times, where the Joker goes to him, and doesn't he give some kind of line about that he's fighting for a world that doesn't care about him, and look what happened to your face, and even your woman doesn't care about you. Like, I was almost getting a Two-Face moment, like, was Eddie gonna basically join Dr. Wells or whatever? Like, I was almost getting those vibes from that scene. So I'm curious what his story arc is in the later seasons, because I was getting those vibes, like, is he gonna turn to the dark side?
Well, so what episode did you watch till? Because I know you didn't finish it.
Well, I had a hard confession time, Caffeinated Librarian listeners. I had a hard time getting through the show, to be perfectly honest. I skipped a lot. I know what happens so I know that there's this epic battle and they get sucked into like this wormhole, whatever. And I watched up to the point where Dr. Wells is talking to Eddie, and he like sees the ring that Eddie's gonna give Iris, and like he says, well, and like he tosses it, you better give this back to your grandmother. And he gives him the headline where you see that Iris is married to Barry. And then I kind of skipped and went to the end. So,
well, do you?
you can spoil things.
No, that's yeah. Well, Eddie dies.
Okay, fine. So there's no
And actually, he's because he's Thawne's great whatever grandfather.
Oh yes, because I saw that line and that part confused me.
Either that or uncle or something like that.
Okay.
You know that whole, like, because they, like, somebody, I don't remember who, says like, you are in a pivotal moment. Like, there's that whole, like, if you go back in time and accidentally kill your grandfather, what happens?
Okay.
So at the pinnacle, Eddie basically shoots himself. Eddie shoots himself so that he stops Thawne from existing.
Okay.
And then there's more stuff, but
Okay.
essentially Eddie is no more.
Okay. I know. I just felt so bad for
Character
him.
arc is well, I
Ugh.
mean, I think that he kind of, you know, him seeing that he was married to Iris, you know, that Iris wasn't married to Eddie. Like, I think that that solidified for him that he wasn't going to be there. Like, I think that he wasn't, like, at first he was thinking, you know, she's going to leave me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think it all kind of crystallized at that pivotal moment that, you know, the only way he can save everyone is if he dies.
Hmm.
So then it's very sad. It's very sad. Everybody is very sad about it. I mean, he does have like he has a little piece of a part in the next season, like, because shock, he goes back in time.
Of course. You know, that's another pet peeve that I have, and I'm gonna have a little rant moment. When shows do this, it's like that's what about Stranger Things that annoyed me. It's like, and have you both watched Stranger Things up until season 3? Because I don't want to spoil it. Okay, then I won't spoil anything. Never mind. I'll say
Okay.
it later. Because I think Stranger Things would be a good show to actually talk about.
It might be. And then like Dan will actually get to watch it. Because
It's a really, really good show.
I know, but it came out how many years ago? It came out when Ellie was still littler than she is.
Yeah.
And like that kid went missing, and
Mm.
that was hard to take.
Well, if it's
Like
any relation, it gets better.
no, I know, but it was just emotionally like really it was just too difficult. Like
And spoiler, they find him.
I know, and that's why I can watch it.
Yeah, well, if you do decide, like, then I'll go
No,
back to point out
I think we should do it. I think it would be a really good thing to talk about.
because that is like chock full of excellent. There's not one character where you're watching like, okay, leave the well, maybe one, but she's still around. But like annoys me. But you know, anyway, so there was a moment where like when shows kill off a character and you think, okay, there's a conclusion, there's an end, we mourn this character, and then they're like, no, we're bringing it sort of cheapens the whole sacrifice that the character makes, and like Supernatural do this all the time, which annoys me, where it's we've killed the character, we've said goodbye, but we're not yet ready to let go of this character. So we'll bring him back constantly. Charmed did it.
Oh, I know.
Where like death had no meaning whatsoever anymore. So when shows do that, it really annoys me because it's almost like if you're going to get rid of a character, give him or her this beautiful moment where even though they're dying, they're making some kind of impact for the greater good, as awful as that sounds, and they die, we mourn them, and we move on. But don't cheapen it by bringing them back, because it's almost like they're like saying, "Psych, we got you." End of my rant.
Okay. Um rant completed. No, I totally get that. And like I'm actually suffering the same thing. And like just a quick plug about like once we stopped watching The Flash, we still needed some sort of stupid superhero thing to watch. So so now we're watching Legends of Tomorrow, which is also like it's the same universe. So they basically used it as like a grab bag for characters from other ones of these shows. So Leonard Snart, who's a bad guy, gets recruited, and I don't think you met Firestorm. Yeah, you met Firestorm. You
Yes,
met
yes.
Firestorm. Yeah, so Firestorm goes into you know, and like Firestorm lost Ronnie, the
Mm-hmm.
engineer that was the first part of Firestorm. He they got a new Firestorm half, and
Okay.
so they both went to that show, and but I have to say I very much enjoy it, but it's the same thing at the end of the first season. One of the characters died, and I was sad about it, and Dan, my husband, kept saying like, oh no, he'll be back. And part of me is like, good, because I like him.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of me kind of feels like, well, but then, he did make a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
It was to save the world. And it's like, yeah, back now. Here you
Mm.
are.
I
Um,
actually liked the Arrow.
mm,
He was a character that whenever he was on, I was captivated by him. And I mean, it also helps that the actor is very good looking, but that's not just an aside. He is a very good looking actor. But I think his character was more compelling than Barry.
did you ever watch any of The Arrow? Like that show?
No, no.
Um, we we watched a few of them, and we had to choose between like whether we were going to binge on The Flash or we were going to binge on this, and so we wound up just binging on The Flash. Um,
Mm.
but I have mixed feelings about him. He's really chaotic neutral.
I got that impression from his character where he definitely doesn't seem like he's afraid to commit violent acts in order to achieve an end goal. I
Yeah.
definitely got his character. But I kind of like when shows do that where other characters within the same universe meet up. Like I think CSI has done that. Law and Order did it. Criminal Minds had like a few episodes where characters from another like Criminal Minds series met up to like help each other. So I kind of like do that.
Right.
Yeah, but I definitely got that vibe from him that he's definitely not afraid to do whatever is necessary to achieve a goal. But I do like how Barry eventually overcomes his whatever he was going through in those few episodes, and the two of them actually work together and achieve the end goal. Like they realize they need each other. So yeah, I don't know if it's a show I would ever check out. Like I'm currently watching Lucifer because one of my good friends loves that show. I've gotten up to like episode 5 or 6 and it's killing me. Like I can't get past it, but I want to try to watch the first season just for her because I recommend the show that I want her to watch. So it's sort of like we're in this together now. Like I have to like pull through.
Um,
It's just so hard.
so let's just, I mean, we are all over the place. So let's get we're going to try to get some content in here about the
Sounds good.
actual show. I love Snart. Snart is my favorite ever. And like a Buffy throw-in, apparently one of his first TV roles was on the swim team that's turned into sea monsters.
Yes, yeah.
Did you find that out too? You're
Um,
nodding.
well, I recognized him. I'm familiar with him and watching Buffy, like I always because I knew him from Prison Break. I'd never watched it, but like I would always see clips of it. So when I first watched season 1, I recognized him when he appears in that episode. Yeah, yeah. But that I didn't realize that was his first television role. But yeah, I definitely, yeah, it's definitely interesting. There's a lot of actors that appear, like even the gentleman from Game of Thrones, the one who plays Prince Oberon, he was in season 4 of Buffy
Oh,
in the first episode. But he looks so different. Like it took me a few
right.
seconds to realize that's him. So it is interesting, like how many actors that you're familiar with have appeared on other shows. Yeah, but yeah, I definitely remember that he was in the swim team episode.
Cool.
Was his
Okay.
head still intact when he did Buffy?
He was. Well, which one, Prince Oberon or the swim team guy?
Prince Oberon.
Well, he meets a bad end, not as bad as in Game of Thrones. It's not as like vomit inducing, but yeah, his character name is Eddie, and Eddie doesn't make it.
Wow, we're having a bad day for Eddies.
Yeah.
Any Eddies that are spoken about, unfortunately, do not make it through. But I have to say, and unfortunately, this is really where it gets hard when I've watched extra episodes. Did we meet Lisa Snart in the first season?
Lisa Snart.
Lisa is his sister. You get a lot of character background, like more for Leonard, I think, than for most other characters, really. Like Cisco, yeah, you meet his family a little bit. And like, let's see, and what's her face? Caitlin.
Mhm.
Also, you meet Ronnie, but that's
Mhm.
it. Um, and Wells has no one. But you do meet Snart's family. You actually, like, they took the time to develop his character more in some ways than other characters that are more like integral.
Mhm.
And that's because I think they did want to develop him into a hero.
I see what you mean. And also, did you mention he's getting his own show or he's joining another
He
show?
was in what's it called? The Legends of Tomorrow, which I've just started calling the Tomorrow People.
Okay.
But they're just a completely different thing. But I found him an interesting character. Like, you find out that they were really badly abused, and he was his sister's like savior, and his father was a thief, so it was more of a family affair, and he didn't really have any other things to fall back on. So I found his character a lot more compelling than than most of the characters on his team. I found Wells really compelling because he was very mysterious. Cisco, I just wanted to hug Cisco and tell him that he was great. But there was not as much development, I think, other than like Iris. And I did want to talk about how this fails the Bechdel test,
Oh, okay.
like super bad. And the
Hmm.
Bechdel test, as we've discussed in the past, is the rating of female characters in terms of them having their own agency and not just being around as a foil for the dudes. And at least the first season was just a train wreck for that. Like Iris just watching the Flash like swoosh away, and and it's a little hard because one of the facets of the Bechdel test is that the the there can't two women talk to each other not about a boy. And the problem is most of the characters only knew each other because of the boy. Like Joe and Iris come together with the Star Labs people because of Barry. It's not, like they're not necessarily discussing, their lives, because it's more about the whatever situation the Flash is facing. But still, it was very hard to find two female characters together in a scene anyway. It just was really rare because, like, the cast is Joe, Barry, Eddie, the partner, Cisco, Wells, and to some extent Ronnie, and then there are two women. So, and and the dad in prison, and the dead mom. If the dead mom actually gets to be a character, because she's in like 3 scenes.
I wonder if it also probably has to do with the genre. Because I'm thinking about when you see like police procedural shows or like crime drama shows, that's when I think you actually have like time for, if there are 2 female characters, they're like discussing a case, or so they're not centered around the men in their lives. So I'm wondering if it's just the nature of the genre. Like if you were to look at other things, would that be slightly different? Like could you get 2 women in a show that's not centered around romance talking about something else? Like that's why I'm kind of curious if it's like a genre specific.
Well, I mean, there could have been female characters. They didn't have to make, like Wells was there. They could have had 2 females instead of Cisco, and like 99% of the villains are male.
I think it probably has to do with I don't know who the showrunner or producer is. It could be that because you see it even with other shows like Supernatural, where many of the women that appear, and that was a criticism of the show, if they're not sleeping with the male leads, they don't really last very long. They don't really have much personality. I mean, the only women in their lives which have personalities, they tend to be older women. So it's like they're not the sexual interest of the 2 brothers.
They're the
So like
moms.
exactly. So there's like a character named Jody whom I love, and she's a police officer, and she helps the boys, but she's very much her own person because she's not their love interest, or she's not they don't see her in that way.
Right. Which is just sad. Like they can't write like an attractive female character as having hopes and dreams and ambitions that are not like sleeping with a boy or going out with a boy.
Yeah, like I said, I'm wondering if it's probably a genre related thing, and also if there are mostly men who are the ones writing the stories, or that could be a factor in it as well. Also, like who their target audience is. Like I know Supernatural, it's mostly women, I think, who watch the show, but I don't think it's targeted necessarily for that audience. They are the primary viewers.
Right.
So that could probably be it as well, like who they're trying to target. I don't know. I'm not saying it's right but I think that's what the issue is, believe it or not. So, but people have called them out on it, but they still do it anyway. I don't really think anything has really much changed with those particular shows, but I'm curious if that's really what it is as well.
Yeah. It would just be nice as a girl that is very into this genre. It would be nice to see like more than a token female. Like, there's Iris, who's the love interest, and she's there as the love interest. She does not offer anything super important to the show. I mean, the blog, I guess, but not really. And then there's Caitlin, who does like actual like character stuff. So, and it's not like I need a role model right now, but it would be nice to see, like more females in this. And they did actually they brought in another female character in the next season, but she was a love interest and it didn't work out, so she left.
Yeah, and like I definitely, especially with comics, and like I'm not claiming to be the expert here, but based on what, like when I looked at people commenting on the genre itself, like classically speaking, when the superhero she just serves as his love interest. She basically serves as his reason to do what he does. And, wounds mostly, and, that's the extent of it. And I think, even though I think there is that expectation of change, there are a lot of people who enjoy comics who I think kind of may still have that expectation. We're sort of like, what's the name of Jane, who likes Spider-Man? Jane, right? I think it's Jane.
I think so.
When you look at her in the films, she didn't really, I don't recall her doing much either.
Well, they're all reporters.
Well, yeah, I guess you got to give them something to do.
Well, they get to talk about the boy.
Yeah, so, that was what she was doing. I mean, she dated the jock. She, she didn't really care about him. That was basically her role. Even with the new Batman films, when it came to Catwoman, although Catwoman, I would say in the newer films, she wasn't really Batman's love interest. Lewis, am I correct in that? In the later Batman films?
She was not until the end.
Oh, okay.
But she became it. But no, she wasn't. She wasn't really portrayed as that. No.
Yeah, she had somewhat of a personality. She was very much, she could take care of herself or whatnot. But I don't know. I don't know whether it's just, I know I sound like a broken record, like a genre specific thing. And I think the expectation of who they're marketing this towards. I mean, obviously there are women that love comics. I'm not saying it's just, men who love comics or who like read them or who watch these films. But I still think the target audience is men. And I think there's an expectation that this is what men want to see. They want to see the male superhero, his love interest, who has somewhat of a personality, but not too much to overshadow his. I mean, kind of look at how some people lose it if, like with the Wonder Woman films, like when they try to re-envision, like I know people were upset when Josh Whedon did the latest Wonder Woman film because of how they claim that he just ruined her character, how she's not recognizable anymore, how he made her more of like the classical kind of love interest, and considering that she's very powerful in her own right. And she's part of, I'm sorry, what's the not organization that she's a part of?
DC.
No, I meant like in the comics, like her, Superman. They're
Justice
part of
League?
Justice?
Yes, thank you.
League of Justice. I'm formalizing this.
Yeah, so she's a member of that league in her own right. And I think many people feel that she just hasn't been given what she deserves in terms of the fact that she's this powerful character in her own right. So like I said, I think it just could be who's writing the stories and who they're targeting.
Right.
Well, I will say that you guys, since you're bringing this up, I will say the big news of the last few days has been that Marvel has tapped Olivia Wilde and to direct one of the next Marvel movies, and Kate Sieberman is actually going to be writing it.
That's so cool.
And Kate Sieberman, wrote Booksmart. Olivia Smile also directed Booksmart, which, by the way, I've told you guys you should watch Booksmart also.
Yes.
If you haven't, you should check it out.
I haven't yet. I really
so I can guarantee you, from being a big fan of Olivia Wilde, that her superhero movie, which the rumors are that it's going to be Spider-Woman, will not have any token females.
That's good.
They will be females with legitimate roles.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Because I have been finding it frustrating in my superhero addiction during this shutdown. The dearth of female characters that are interesting.
Yeah, well, hopefully, that'll change, like Lewis said, with more women who are directing, more women who are writing, that hopefully will change, and we will get, interesting female characters in their own right. I'm opposed to love interest storylines, but, I do like to have a female character that has a life and interest outside of her love interest. And vice versa, even if it were, well, this is not always the case for the men, but it's always nice where, yes, you love someone, but you also have a life that's fulfilling outside of that. Well, basically that you do find fulfillment in other things other than just strictly living for the person that you love.
And that's a more, I mean, hopefully we do have something else, you know, and and overly focusing on it and kind of making it that's the correct thing that women should be feeling, because men should have other hobbies, but but women should really only have crushes on men, ideally that they can't have.
Yeah. So like I said, hopefully that's going to change. That was one of the issues I had with Twilight. Um, was
One of, huh?
basically, well, that was just one, since we're talking about women living just solely for the men. One of the issues I had, as Lewis has pointed out, one of them was the fact that she seemed to have no goal outside of landing some vampire boy, and that was the end all be all.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, it had its appeal. I know. I'll be the first to admit I read all 4 books. I watched all the movies. But yeah, that was one of the issues I did have. The lack of personality, the lack of desire outside of fulfilling like this goal to get this boy who he was extremely problematic in many ways.
Yes.
But yeah, so
I have more questions if you
cool.
guys are ready.
Yes.
Sure.
All right. If you had to choose one superpower to have, what would it be, and why, and how would you use it?
Man. And nobody's going to say that we could run real fast. I think that is not the one. I think I would probably, man, that's a tough one. I think I would be able to talk to animals, because I have a really pessimistic view of helping the world. And I'd enjoy that. That's something that I feel like I would enjoy being able to do.
I don't know if it's necessarily a power, but I would just like the ability to travel back and forth in time.
You could be the
Um,
Flash.
yeah, minus the super speed. Because I've always had this desire outside of reading about what people in the olden days did to actually be able to visit, just to be an observer, not to have to necessarily live the experience, but just to be able to observe and interact would be extremely cool for me. Yeah, that would be one thing. And if I could choose like a second one, I know Lewis only asked for one. If I could choose a second, I think I would love the ability to read minds.
Why is that,
And,
and how would you use it?
well, I would kind of see it as a way to gauge a person. Like I could avoid a danger or a threat, or like, so that's how sort of I would help someone, like being able to gauge, is this person truly sincere? What is this person's true intentions and motivations? And yeah, I guess I would use it to either like obviously help myself or help someone else that I cared about if I felt, oh, that person's in danger. It's sort of like when you see the character that can read the intentions of the person, that person is involved with their friend. They want to just say, no, you can't go with that person. The friend's like, well, why not? And they can't say, well, I just read his mind. He's a sleaze kind of thing. So I guess that's how I would use it.
Awesome.
It's kind of lame, but that's how I would use it.
I would fly.
What about you?
I was going to ask you, fly.
I would fly so that I didn't have to put miles on my car.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
I like that.
because I lease.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
that's a really nice idea.
I would only use powers for selfish reasons.
That's fair. As the person that would just be talking to my pets all the time. Like, please just tell me, why do you need to bark all the time? Maybe I could
And I would, of
convince
course,
them to shut up.
yeah, I would of course also like the ability to turn off. Like I wouldn't want to always be inundated by people's thoughts. Like I'm thinking of like the Buffy and the Charmed episode where like the characters get
Mhm.
the power to read thoughts, but they can't turn it off and they're like on the verge of dying because they can't just shut it off. So I would also like the ability to like turn it off as well.
Right. That's the same in True Blood.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another show where, yeah.
I never watched the show. I read them.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot. Obviously, they made a lot of changes. I think I only watched the first 2 seasons, I want to say. And things just got a little too crazy for me. I don't know if that is on Netflix. I mean, if that would be a show you would be interested, like at least the first
Yeah.
season into.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there are fun elements. There also are a hell of a lot of problematic elements on the show. But I think that would be an interesting one to watch as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think so.
All
Alrighty.
right. Next question.
Yes.
Favorite superhero? And you can only pick one. No more cheating.
Okay. I have to go with Iron Man. I mean, I know there's the whether or not he's a superhero or not thing because it's all just tech like Batman, but Robert Downey Jr. is the reason. And I love Snark. Snark is my thing. When they killed off Loki, I feel like, and now at the end of the other one, so we are running low on snarky individuals in the Marvel comic universe. But yeah, Iron Man.
I don't have a favorite like DC or Marvel superhero. I'm just gonna go with Buffy. I know she doesn't count because she's not in any of these universes. But as far as I'm concerned, she's awesome. So I'm going with Buffy.
Awesome.
I just like her. She has a good mixture of vulnerability and strength, and she's awesome. So Buffy.
How about you?
I guess Thor.
Oh, Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, like I said, I don't like the way he's portrayed. He should just be able to beat up anybody.
My favorite scene in every single Avengers movie ever, my favorite single scene is when the Hulk punches him. Best scene ever. And I want to use that gift for everything. Just like it's the best.
It is.
Yeah, I've seen all of those films.
Yeah.
I don't know which
and
one
Ragnarok is probably, if not the best, one of the best Marvel movies. It's just hilarious.
I don't know if I've seen all the Thor movies.
Yeah, the only one that's worth it is really Ragnarok. It's just very funny.
Dan tells me I was asleep and we watched it. I can't refute that, but I haven't seen it in any case. Alrighty.
All right. 2 more questions.
Okay.
Favorite villain?
Loki. Does he count?
Of course.
Okay.
Favorite villain? I don't think I have one. Yeah, I don't think I have one.
Okay, so you can have Loki too, because I like him enough for both of us.
And I would have to say the Joker.
Oh yeah.
But
okay.
Heath Ledger's Joker though.
That's a dark Joker.
Not Jared Leto's Joker.
Yeah.
Jared Leto's Joker, like I'm trying to understand what he was working on, like working with. It's like because I know that people have mixed feelings. I know for people the Joker will always be Jack Nicholson.
Mm-hmm.
Will always be the Joker. I had a classmate of mine, she wrote her thesis on Wonder Woman, and I asked her, she was a big comic book fan. I asked her, what did you think of Heath Ledger's performance? And she didn't like it. She didn't elaborate on what she didn't like, but she did not like his performance. And I know there were other people that didn't like it too. I guess they were saying because he lacked the humor. I guess that the
there was not any humor, that is for sure.
No, he was dark.
Yeah.
He was
I mean,
dark.
I did like the scene where he's coming out of the hospital in the nurse's outfit and he pushes the button and then nothing happens and then he starts pushing and it explodes. So I guess there was humor, but it was more subtle. Like with Jack Nicholson, it was very much like in your face, like it was very much the comic book come to life. With the newer films, I think they were trying to ground it in a realism. Like it wasn't so like with those classic Joker films, you very much felt like you were watching the comic book coming to life, like the really outrageous, bonkers kind of comedy. So I think maybe that's what some people didn't like. And also even with the makeup choice, it was grounded in a sense of realism. And also I think Heath Ledger said he wanted to look like as if he applied it, but in his insanity, he was like smearing it. So like it was caked on or whatever. Yeah, but I mean, I liked it. So maybe I'd go with Heath Ledger's performance of the Joker. I'm stealing Lewis, so I'll go with Heath Ledger's Joker as well.
All right, and last but not least, DC or Marvel?
Marvel.
I have no loyalty. To either one. So like, yeah.
I lean towards DC, but not because of the movies, but because of just the characters. I'd say Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman kind of trump anything that Marvel has.
I get that. I love Marvel. I love like the universe that they've created like in movies, which I don't really feel like DC has gotten there.
They have not. No.
Alrighty, well, that concludes this episode of the Caffeinated Librarians. Thank you again for listening to us, and we look forward to talking with you again when we discuss our next topic, whatever that may be. We haven't decided yet, but thank you. And thank you, Lewis, for participating in this one. It's always fun when you come on.
Yes,
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.